You're on film now. I'm the official photographer.
Oh, well done.
Hi.
Thank you very much. Good to have professionals around the place.
Yeah, good luck with that. How are you, Salika?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry while I just do a little hi, baby.
Close the door, leave it open.
Yeah, we might as well close it, I think, just because they might have people coming to walk in.
That's everybody? Yeah.
Just make it. Yeah, it's a tight squeeze, but. All right. Well, welcome, good morning, family and friends, and welcome to the funeral service for Shirley Moore. We acknowledge and welcome in spirit absent friends and family. So this includes Mum's youngest son Dave, who's in Kazakhstan, and grandchildren Shannon in Queensland, Alex in Victoria, and Marlene in Cambodia, and her dear friend Rona, who's recovering in hospital from a broken pelvis and various other broken bones. But thank you to Therese and Pete for travelling from Queensland, and Taryn for travelling from Victoria, and Myrna, Mike and Lisa have travelled up from Australia today. And Kelsey from Victoria. Yeah. Today gives us the opportunity to formally farewell our beloved mother, our mother-in-law, sister, sister-in-law, auntie, grandma and friend. And I'll shortly hand you over to my sister Therese Ray, who will provide a eulogy. And also, if anyone else would like to speak, there's an opportunity to do so as well, following which I'll also say a few words. And of course, Alexandra is going to be saying a few words, whether we wanted to or not. So feel free to follow Alexandra's example and have a couple of words. And you don't have to wait to be asked either. We're then going to have a reflection with friends and family. We'll have the opportunity to have an individual moment with our mum where they can place a sprig of rosemary on the coffin as they pay their last respects. And the rosemary, of course, has long been associated with remembrance. At the end of this service, we're going to further celebrate the life of Shirley Moore next door at OP's Tavern here at 11 o'clock. And we also have a few other friends who are going to join us at the wake. We've also brought along a collection of photos, and such as her mum's wedding album, some of the famous trips that she enjoyed so much in her retirement. And we can have a look at those today, and whether that be here or next door at the tavern today, you're most welcome to do that. But at this stage, I'd like to hand you over to Therese, who can say a few words. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. So thank you all again for coming today. It's a difficult time with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, so I really appreciate you being able to get here. So our mum was a remarkable woman. She, like many of her generation, she relished her role as Bob's wife and mother to myself and my two brothers, Stephen and David. She kept an amazing home. Our meals were home cooked and healthy. Long before it was trendy, Mum did her research and planned our menus around raw foods, wheat germ, wholemeal flour, yeast tablets, no salt or fat for that matter, anything to keep the family healthy, especially Bob, who, despite his bad habits, she managed to keep around for a long time. Mum also made our clothes on a Singer sewing machine, but a lover of fashion herself, she knew when to stop sewing and to take me clothes shopping, including for a pair of Jag jeans and a matching denim shirt in the mid-70s, which I'll never forget. Mum managed to sustain her efforts on the home front in the face of having to relocate to many small towns in Western Australia, supporting Dad in his police career. I remember living in one small town, Whitnoon, where the blue asbestos tailings from the mine was spread out on our front yard as a makeshift lawn. Our house was literally attached to the police station, so as well as running our home, Mum fed the prisoners and cleaned the cells. I think she also cleaned the local airport as well. Mum's ability to manage a career outside of the home, as well as looking after us all, is a central theme in her life. Wherever we lived, she found work, and it was her long career as a receptionist telephonist at the State Parliament of Western Australia, of which she was proudest. She thought that Brian Burke was a wonderful man, cruised the Swan River with Richard Court, and made a lifelong friend of Kathy. She managed to fix it so that Peter and I could get married in the gardens of Parliament House. Mum even got mentioned in the Hansard notes before she left, and this is what they said about her. Honourable Robert Hetherington, South East Metropolitan at 5:43 p.m. Before the House adjourns, I would like to mention that tomorrow, Mrs. Shirley Moore of the Switchboard will leave the service of this Parliament for at least 12 months, perhaps for good. While she goes on leave, both paid and unpaid, I want, and I am sure I do so on behalf of all members of the House, to wish her well and hope that she has a thoroughly enjoyable leave. I hope she comes back again soon because, and then there was an interjection, Honourable P.G. Pendle, she will have more sense than that. Honourable Robert Hetherington then said she may not. Shirley Moore, together with Kathy Harrison and Barry Trinick, made a thank you, Susan. What? You're prompting me because I was having problems last night with the word. Thank you. Oh, it's just a mental block. I'm looking at you for my cue. Superlative. Superlative team. I was trying to think of superlatives, and the only superlative I could think of is superlative. They are the best switchboard team I've ever encountered, anywhere at any time. They are friendly and remarkably efficient. As Honourable Tom Stevens just remarked to me, as I have remarked myself on occasion, some of us have relatives interstate, or in his case, New Guinea. And when those relatives ring, the switchboard team tracks us down very smartly. They find us wherever we are and will even ring our electorate offices if necessary to find us. I have never known service like this anywhere. Seeing that this is probably my penultimate speech, and I failed to mention them in my first final speech, I want to place on record my appreciation of each and every one of them individually, but particularly as a team. Then the members all said, "Hear, hear."
Here, here.
Mum showed me how it was possible to balance home and work commitments, and my brothers and I all learned the value of hard work. Perhaps the values of family, hard work and community are unsurprising for someone who grew up in small country towns. She shared these values with her little sister Myrna, and whom she had a lifelong, deep and loving connection. Mum loved sport. As a teenager, she played netball, but felt the need for more contact and started a women's AFL team in Morawa. 70 years later, her eldest granddaughter Taryn plays women's AFL in Melbourne. One more aspect of her legacy. Mum also took up fencing, and she played tennis, golf and bowls in every town she lived in, finding friendship and a sense of community along the way. When her working life was over, she relished her golden years with Bob, continually upgrading their caravan for more extended trips around Australia. They escaped the Perth winters to stay in far north Queensland at Branston Beach. And at the campground, they would catch up with their caravanning friends and share many days and nights of crabbing, fishing and socialising. Shirley is the grandmother of 7, Taryn, Shannon, Shelley, Kelsey, Alex, Aidan, Zoe, and has 2 great-granddaughters, Lucy and Alexandra. She was a very hands-on grandma and very supportive of her children as parents. The last 2 years were hard for Mum, given her health, and Stephen and Salika have been extremely generous in their support of our mum during this difficult time. David and I and our families are forever grateful for all that they have done. Thank you. Later in life, Mum found a passion for gardening, so I would like to share a couple of lines from William Wordsworth's poem Splendour in the Grass. Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendour in the grass, of glory in the flower, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind. So thank you, Mum, for everything you so freely gave us and all that remains behind. We love you, we will miss you, we will remember you. We believe that you are in a happier place now.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much, Therese. And it was very nicely said, and thank you, and lots of good memories there. And look, this is a pretty informal occasion, and I would certainly ask if anyone would like to say a few words, prepared or otherwise, or then feel quite free. The floor is yours, or wherever you may choose to say it. Tara, thank you.
Hello. So, me and Kels and Shell got together last night and, sort of, talked about Grandma, but, I think we couldn't really get anything on words, and when I got home last night, I sort of wrote down a few things. So, I was trying to remember my favourite memories of Grandma, and I was thinking about it, I was like, a lot of them revolved around food. So I remember when at Morley Drive she made this awesome spaghetti chicken. I would have been about 4 and I still remember that spaghetti chicken. There was the crayfish mornay in Dongra, the various baked goods that were always on offer whenever we went around, and I can just definitely remember I was never hungry when I was at Grandma's. But I think my favourite memory of Grandma isn't really a memory, but more of a feeling. She always made you feel special, and she was always just so damn proud of her grandchildren and our lives and achievements. One summer, I stayed at her place when I was visiting Perth, and as soon as I got there, she pulled me out the door to take me down to everyone's houses. She needed to introduce me to everyone because apparently she just talked non-stop about her eldest grandchild coming to stay, and everyone just had to meet me. Even though Shannon and I were living on the other side of Australia, every year we always got a birthday card with a $5 note tucked in. One year Shannon got a 10, I was really jealous. It took me a while to get over it. And even though I was moving around a lot, in my 20s, she would always, and I was in some random share house, she would track me down and send that card off to make sure it got to me. Every year she would call me without fail on my birthday, and her opening line was, "Happy birthday to my eldest and favourite grandchild." But we all knew that Shirley's the favourite, so, but I went along with it, that's fine. But when we would talk on the phone, most of the conversation would revolve around my cousins and how smart and amazing they were. How Aiden and Zoe were growing up so fast, she would just gush about them all the time. How Shelley and her latest achievements, and Kelsey and Alex's latest mischiefs. Grandma was so proud of her grandchildren, and I'm sure that Shelley, Shannon, Kelsey, Alex, Aiden and Zoe would all agree that when you were with her, she made you feel like you were the most important person in the world, and you were truly special. And for that, we'll miss her.
Thank you, Anyone else would like to say a word or two? It's no pressure either way. But we've got to fill in a bit of time before the tabernacles, so I better fill in that. I'll try and speak really slowly. Opens at 11. And we can, it's not far either, so even for those of us that are not the fittest, it's, even with a slow walk, it's going to not take us that long to get there. Anyway, always hard looking at such a long life and what to say. I thought that we're going to have a bit of time to go through and discuss all the years, and we can do that, maybe over a drink shortly. I thought perhaps I might just touch on a couple of little chapters that were particularly close to me. One was a trip to Leonora that I made with Mum and Dad and Salika. And then one, as Therese mentioned, the last couple of years, which have been pretty difficult for everyone. So Mum was born in Leonora, the eldest daughter of Alexander and Vera McPherson, who were also born in the goldfields. Alexander in Kew and Vera in Boulder. And the goldfields are a tough place to work and to live now. So we can imagine how tough and difficult it must have been in the 1930s, in which was the middle of the Great Depression era. And I'm sure the hardship of that location and of that era must have had a strong influence on Mum and on her personality. And I think it also gave her an appreciation for the simple things, the little things in life. Salika and I took Mum and Dad for I find it hard, for a trip back to Leonora in 2016. It was the first time she'd been back there since she left as an infant in the 1930s. We were invited into the railway master's house. There was an old house which was being renovated, which was the original rail master's house, but a couple were living in a caravan and doing it up. And when we spoke around to different people, we were trying to retrace all these steps. We came across it. Exactly. And so adjacent to that house would have been where Mum would have lived as a young girl. It was also next to what was known on the town map at the time as the Afghan Quarter. And Afghan cameleers were used to transport supplies, to build the railway, and then to take supplies to the mine sites and the settlements all around Leonora. And when we visited Gwalia, which is a ghost town nearby, and it was one of the biggest gold mines in Australia at one stage, there's a museum there, and we found a photo of Mum's mum and dad, which is I think what Tony Werner has now, riding a camel. And I was working in Afghanistan at the time, and I took great delight in explaining this piece of Australian heritage to all my Afghan colleagues. And this little association that I had helped me to build a really good relationship in Afghanistan, which was really important working in that culture and that country. At the museum there was also a Model T Ford. We've got a photo of it somewhere. And the number plate on the Model T Ford was L for Leonora in 1935, which was Mum's birth year, 12th of December 1935. And it was such a nice thing to see and for her, and to take photos with her next to this old Model T Ford. We also took, I'd taken Mum's birth certificate with me on the trip, and we took it to the hospital in Leonora. And when we visited the hospital, we spoke and we joked about Matron Peachy. Matron Peachy was the midwife that was named on the birth certificate that had delivered Mum, and we were making jokes about what she would have remarked when Mum was born. And I can remember Dad making some joke about it, a remarkable specimen or something along those lines out in the goldfields of Leonora. And we always had fun in gently ribbing Mum about that. And it was a great trip down memory lane for Mum. And she became quite emotional about it. And she shed a few tears, and you didn't see that very often, when we visited the railway precinct where she would have lived. I particularly remember that trip as shortly after we returned to Perth, Dad was diagnosed with cancer, and he died a little less than 4 years later. And this was the time that Mum, who had developed dementia, moved into Chewett Lodge at the Rafa nursing home. And Mum had always been fearful of dementia, as she had witnessed and cared for her own mother, who had died from Alzheimer's disease in the mid-1980s. So the last 20 months must have been very difficult for Mum. After losing her husband of 61 years and fighting the dementia demons that absolutely tormented her, It was a difficult time for her, and it's been a difficult time for family and friends witnessing behaviour changes and memory loss, and something that was remarked upon frequently to Therese when she was ringing old friends to give them the news of Mum's passing. So while it has been a difficult time, and there is no escaping the fact that dementia is a terrible disease, and it leaves its scars on so many people, during the last 20 months, I've probably got to understand more about my mum, spend more time with her, and to appreciate her and love her for who she is than I did in the preceding 20 years. So some key memories I have include, we would visit coffee shops twice a week when she was still mobile. And she would order her favourite dessert, vanilla slice. And she would talk about her memories, such as working in the bakery at Morawa, one of the first jobs from where she first tasted vanilla slices. I remember Mother's Day 2021, which marked the last day when she had sufficient mobility to climb the stairs at our house in Yundari, where she used to enjoy visiting and having coffee and balcony views and seeing the occasional dolphin swim past. She would talk about how cornflakes became her favourite breakfast. And after she first tasted these as a young girl visiting and staying at a friend's house who lived on a farm in Morawa, she associated cornflakes with rich people. Remember what I said about the 30s and the Depression era and the hardships from Leonora? And she also spoke about that time as when she first tasted bananas, which became her favourite fruit. This exotic fruit, the banana. And Salika enjoyed telling her about the 20 different varieties of banana in Cambodia. And I was contacted by a psychology student from Sydney University who, as part of her assignment, was helping to develop a life story of Shirley Moore pictorial as part of a memory project, bringing back memories and going over memories. And it was great to go over, to look back at and find old photos and old events and go over some of the key memories in her life with her. And as Trace mentioned, regularly reading the extract from Hansard was something I enjoyed doing after she had resigned from a job in Parliament House on the 14th of April 1989. And I would often refer to her as Super Shirley, in reference to the superlative Shirley and the best switchboard team ever reference in WA's official parliamentary record. And 1989, which is 33 years ago now, marked the start of her caravan adventures when she retired from that job. And I was able to spend a lot of time going over diaries and photo albums with her, recounting the happy adventures she had with Dad and friends that they met on the way. I was also able to observe through those travel diaries how much attention she paid to writing and telephoning family members and friends, and we've heard Taryn already speak about that. And when I'm reading through them and reading them with her, every week she would methodically ring, send cards or letters to keep in touch. And you could read and see the joy that she received in doing this and receiving incoming letters and phone calls. And she also, you could see in the journals how she would arrange in advance for the mail to be redirected to various post offices across the country as they were travelling around. And she also noted in the travel journals how homesick she would feel on special occasions like Christmas and birthdays, when she missed her family and friends. Mum often spoke about her dear sister Myrna and how she enjoyed the regular train trips to catch up. And in reference to her many aches and pains, she would often quote Myrna and say, Myrna used to always say, old age ain't for wimps.
That's me.
Which is true, isn't it? She enjoyed all her family photos and paintings that decorated her room, some of which we've put out on here, including the grandchildren collage that she built up over the years. And I enjoyed seeing Mum's dear and loyal friend Rona, visiting Mum. And Rona, as I said earlier, is now in hospital recovering. And thank you, Tony, for coming today, and thank you for you and your wonderful Mum's friendship. It's just fantastic. I also loved watching how she enjoyed visits from Salika. She would always be pleased to see me, but I've got to say, like, I would be the dutiful son and rock up religiously and hi Mum and oh hi Steve, good to see you. And then Salika would have this thing she'd hide behind, and then she'd say, hi Mum. And then Mum's eyes would light up and hello Salika. So she was always delighted to see Salika. And during some of the hard times dealing with Mum, Salika always impressed upon me the importance of these visits, and I'm grateful to Salika for doing this. Salika lost her own mother when she was a young girl, and she knew it was a privilege to have a mother. And Mum could do no wrong in her eyes. It always made me and Mum happy seeing Salika managing to get a laugh out of Mum. And I'm just so grateful for the happiness that Salika gave Mum and the inspiration that she gave me. I was also grateful to be able to spend Mum's last day with her. I was able to thank her for being a great mum, tell her that Therese, Dave and Salika were on their way to see her, tell her how much we all loved her and kiss her goodnight and goodbye. And within an hour of leaving her, she passed away. So rest in peace, Mum, and thanks for the memories. And that's it from me, thank you. If anyone else would like to say a word, feel free. But if not, what we might do now, Shirley from her own little garden has picked some rosemary. So if I could just invite people, if they would like to select a sprig of rosemary and place it on the coffin in remembrance of Shirley, and when you do, if you can think of those happy moments that that you shared with her. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Sorry. Sorry. Just wanted to
I'll go ahead.
sorry to be jumping. Sorry, Aiden.
Oh, sorry.
I want to get into that corner there.
That's okay. No, exactly. Oh, no, thank you. Yeah, it's, you never know what to do, do you? It's such a big, long life. Yeah, same thing, like, mum's last day, mum's and she was just such a, mum was so difficult, she was grown and would just come up for seconds each time. And she was like a boxer, she'd get belted around and she kept coming up.
My granddad's in the grandchild. Just so happy.
Yeah, that was one of Mike's paintings, pretty cool, the Paul Hitler. So that's Vernon.
Yep.
I love how there's like a friend.
Yeah, in fact, I started working with Paul Hitler. One of the first things I did, I drove to the pool there and took a photo. And then we got one of my others, so I sort of showed her the photo and I said, this is the same as this one.
Yeah, I thought it was
Really
great.
smooth.
Steve was determined it's pretty cool in Port Hedland. Oh, well, Steve probably all those memories. He took photos when he was out there to show them. Mike painted it. You painted it. Where is it?
Here we go. What?
I think so.
We're down to Milo now.
Is that enough?
It's enough carrot.
Are we sure?